In actual fact, Reynolds is the fastest man on the track. Looking at the lap time monitor, Reynolds has set the fastest lap of the race so far. But Terry Rymer is the man on the charge. He's got past Rob McElnea, as we saw, in quite dramatic style. He looks very mean. He looks determined to catch John Reynolds. And if he can keep and sustain that determination, it only needs John to make one small mistake, which he's not in the habit of doing, but it only needs one small mistake, and Terry is right with him.
And Terry is right with him. Number 23 then, Terry Rymer, originally from Lee Green in South London. Now lives in Barnhurst in Kent, which is still pretty much in the same sort of area. Is riding a variety of motorcycles this year, and this is the man we're talking about. The Norton, as you can see, is his mount for the British National Series. He rides factory Kawasaki's in World Endurance and rides a Ducati in the World Superbike Championship. So not an easy thing to do, and Roger Burnett is probably the best qualified man to comment on that. Three totally different sorts of motorcycle, Roger.
Yeah, Terry's really shown his class this year by riding the various bikes that he's ridden. In fact, he's ridden 5 different make of machine this year, some with success, the 3 with success and some without. But the Norton is the one that he's riding here today, and as you see, he's now virtually on the back wheel of John Reynolds, so I'm sure that Terry must have put in the fastest lap on that last lap to catch John. The rotary Norton is slightly faster than the Kawasaki, so I wouldn't imagine it would be too long before he is nibbling away and trying to get in front of John Reynolds.
The one piece of credit we haven't, of course, given yet to Terry Rymer is his 5th place in the British Grand Prix in his first attempt. So a sterling effort indeed, but now he's closing and the stage is set for a ding-dong battle between the Kawasaki of Reynolds, number 3, and Rymer with his head down on the Norton, and he knows just how quick it is. Reynolds is in 3rd place in the championship but leading the race. Rymer 2nd place in the race and in the championship lead, and could possibly, and maybe this is part of his strategy for the race, could possibly force John Reynolds into making some sort of slip. And Oulton Park is the sort of circuit you could slip up on if you wanted to, and look at him on the inside, hard on the brakes. And you can see from John Reynolds' point of view that he's been well and truly passed, but the Kawasaki man fighting back, no good. The Norton firmly in front, very determined activity from Terry Rymer. John Reynolds won't be pleased about that, but Rymer did it on riding ability. That wasn't about top speed, Roger. That was about riding ability, determination, and outright bravery.
I think that John's been caught with his trousers down, so to speak, and I think he'll have to wake up a little bit in this race to get back at Terry. Terry's come through from 3rd or 4th place early on, past Rob McElnea, caught John Reynolds up and has now passed him, and he's the man that's really fired up, and he knows what he's doing. John is closing there, breaking into the Shell Oils corner, but John now needs to get a grip of himself and really set off to go back at Terry. And I think we're really in for a fantastic finish to this race. This is how it happened, and as you said, Barry, is complete riding ability. You see Terry going further on the brakes, up the inside of John Reynolds. John couldn't lean over into the corner because Terry was there, and then he comes through, and John's got all the work to do now.
This is exactly the scenario that could result in John Reynolds becoming just a teeny-weeny bit desperate and maybe doing something silly. Let's hope not, because we certainly want the very able and capable Kawasaki rider to hang on to his 2nd place. A lot of people here, of course, would will him back in front, but Terry Rymer knew, and he spoke about it at the outset of the race, he knew that he could settle for nothing less than 20 points in each of these encounters, and if all goes well for the rest of this race, it will move him on to 150 points. Then he needs Lady Luck to shine for him at Brands Hatch in his absence. Well over half distance now then, 2/3 in fact of the distance into this race, and Terry Rymer is now some 25 yards ahead. Rob McElnea, number 1, in 3rd place, the red bike in your picture being dropped away just a little bit, very soon to fall into the clutches, I suspect, of the other Kawasaki ridden by Brian Morrison, number 6. but the battle royal at the front, and Reynolds going in hard there. And watch the rev counter, bottom right of your picture, 10, 11, 12, peeking through there, 12, 13,000 revs into the red line, and shouldn't really go over that red line because it could end up dumping all the internals of the engine in a big way on the circuit. But you can see he's buzzing it, absolutely wringing the neck of the Kawasaki, but still the Norton going away from him. How frustrating can that be, Roger?
Extremely frustrating, and John is doing everything right at the moment. I think he's now got a grip of himself, as I said he should, and he looks like he's now in a position where he's stabilised the gap between him and Terry. And I think now it's up to Terry to try and break away, which I don't think he's going to be able to do. John is going to be able to watch. The track is drying, those damp patches. You see how he comes up tight onto Terry in the braking area. Now we'll go through onto the start and finish to complete lap number 9. And for the next couple of laps, I would imagine John to sit and watch, and then I think he's going to make a real charge and effort to repass Terry.
Totally frightening from the rider's point of view. A very difficult and demanding circuit, Oulton Park, with its ups and downs, adverse cambers. A lot of the bends have an apex and then the track falls away, so the back goes very light. The top 6, as you can see, Robert Dunlop on the second of the 2 Nortons in the top 6, but right behind him is the number 46 Roton of Mark Farmer. So very much a success story, the Rotary Engine Brigade in the 1992 series. Terry Rymer, however, is having to defend his rear end from a determined challenge by John Reynolds, flicking it through. Full stops. Now, up through the gearbox here, over the brow of the hill, and then driving down towards Knickerbrook, 150 miles an hour as they go through here. Again, adverse camber, very tricky circuit, can't run wide onto the curbs, getting all sorts of trouble. Still in 6th gear over the brow of the hill, incredibly quick. Norton, number 23, Terry Rymer, leads Kawasaki, number 3, John Reynolds. Still it's Rob McElnea, and that battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th as Reynolds, Kawasaki tries to spit him off, but the front wheel going light again in the air. And just watch the 2 totally contrasting lines as they go down into Deerleak with everything bottoming, all the suspension all the way down. Reynolds Kawasaki doesn't seem to be handling quite as well.
The problem is John is a very light rider, and all through practice, in fact, he's had trouble with the rear wheel starting to spin as he comes through the start and finish area. The track is slightly damp today, and that won't be helping, and it sets the bike off in a weave and a shake, and John has to sit there and hang on, and that's literally what's happening. But it's quite a frightening experience, and John's overcoming that. But the problem is, if you set the suspension and everything good for that particular area, it makes it poor in the rest of the circuit. So can't afford to do that. But John certainly doesn't seem to be suffering from that. Right on the back wheel of Terry, 3 laps to go.
The fact that the circuit is still damp and it's quite cold here as well at Oulton Park today is underlined by the fact that these riders are about 2 seconds outside the outright lap record set by Ron Haslam on a similar machine to that which is being ridden by race leader Terry Rymer ahead of us now. So I think they're not prepared to throw caution to the wind, and frankly, who can blame them? And that's a severe shake of the steering head again. And you saw the movement clearly there through the on-bike camera of number 3, John Reynolds. The Kawasaki just a little bit unhappy. But Reynolds absolutely squeezing everything out of it. And the 3rd place battle hotting up. I don't think these 2 are going to be alone for much longer. McElnea now under real pressure from number 6, Brian Morrison, in 3rd place. Terry Rymer, however, still leading and looking as though he's going to be able to hold on to this one. After all, he came from 3rd place with a very bold overtaking move through past Reynolds, almost bumped Rob McElnea off the track, but never mind, it got him there. And that 3rd place battle, there you have 3rd place McElnea, 4th place Morrison, and 5th Jamie Whitham, who has, well, he's been in that position and been trying hard the whole race, Whitham.
Yes, and his bike does look like it's a good match for the other makes of bike on this track here at Oulton Park. He's hanging on well, and when it comes to the last couple of laps, Jamie seems to grow horns and something extra comes out, and he seems to be able to go through on the brakes in any particular place. So that's something to watch for as things hot up over the last couple of laps. But the main problem, going back to the Reynolds situation with the bike shaking, is mainly grip. He's light, it's damp conditions, the bike has an awful lot of horsepower. Terry's probably getting on for twice John Reynolds' weight, believe it or not, and that really does make a difference.
Well, 6'2", Terry Rymer. As I said, a very, very tall man indeed. Long, long legs, and you can see them down on the tarmac more often than not. And Reynolds, number 3, right with him, has to move. John Reynolds has to move his entire body weight across the bike simply because his legs are almost off the footrest. They're just not long enough maybe to get where he wants to get, but nevertheless a terrific rider with a brilliant future ahead of him. Reynolds, fairly young by in terms of seasons in professional road racing, just 6 full seasons. Began his career in vintage racing. Prior to that, he was a motocross rider and is one of the bright lights on the UK scene. In fact, both these men are bright lights, as it were. 5th place in the Grand Prix for Terry Rymer, leading the Supercup Championship. John Reynolds, however, determined to take the lead away from him if there's anything he can do about it. Now, this is the very banked right-handed corner, the Shell Oil's hairpin. Coming out of there, they go down towards the chicane. The left and the right, Fulstons. Now, up through the gearbox. Let's see how quick this Norton is. Over the brow of the hill, yes, it's going away, just a fraction. And now, down towards Knickerbrook. Reynolds closing in on the brakes, Roger.
Yeah, the Kawasaki does appear to be handling better. Whenever there is a corner or a braking area, Reynolds does seem to close, but Terry's an expert at getting the power, and the back wheel will be trying to break free on the Norton. He gets out of the corners exceptionally good. You can see then that there were tail enders in the picture, so we've got 1 lap to go as they come around to complete this is the 13th lap. So if those guys get in the way, then that's where the race could be won or lost.
Well, they've done 36 miles. Tail enders ahead of them. 1 lap then. 2.77 miles of the Oulton Park circuit left to do. And this could be the most demanding lap that Terry Rymer's had to do. And there's a touch, and that just underlines the tail ender. Terry Rymer's on the grass. The tail ender did not know he was there. He has thrown away the lead, and he's going to stay on it. Not easy. Oh, poor Terry. He tried and tried and tried, but slick tyres on the grass, and he cannot believe it. Well, it's as simple as that. Terry Rymer must be in tears, devastated. John Reynolds, however, with the tail enders ahead of him, is now going to what looks like the championship win. It's certainly the race win. That is unbelievably bad luck for Terry Rymer. Roger, was that a rash move on Terry's behalf? Should he have waited just a second?
It's very difficult to say. As I mentioned in the earlier manoeuvre that Terry did, he was riding very hard in this race with a lot of determination. My opinion is that he overcooked it there. He should have waited. There was no way that the slower rider that he was passing would know he was there, and he couldn't have expected to have been given the room that he really needed to take the corner.
With race leader and what's looking like race winner John Reynolds cresting the hill, the news is for Kawasaki that Morrison is up to 2nd place from Whitham, having gone past Rob McElnea. So a blindingly quick finish to get another Kawasaki 1-2. Morrison took his life in his hands. And Terry Rymer totally dejected and, I have to say, in tears. Roger, talk us through this.
You can see, I think it's Tom Knight, he's going into the corner, he's trying to use all the road, and Terry had no chance of getting through there, and he couldn't have expected that the rider could have actually seen what was going on. It is Tom Knight. In fact, Terry had no option but to take to the grass. He then was anxious to get back on the track and to try and maintain some kind of position in this race, but the rest of it's history. He lost control on the grass, it's very slippery, and Reynolds won. So, as I said, that is what can happen, and backmarkers do play a part in these races.
Confirmation then of an eventful 750cc race. Reynolds from Morrison, Whitham, McElnea, Dunlop. Mark